the screen is red. Your portfolio is down 40%. Every headline screams it's going lower. Your hands are sweating, and one quiet voice in your skull is begging you to make it stop, to sell right now before it gets even worse. If you listen to that voice, you will do the single most expensive thing an investor can do, and you will do it at the exact worst moment. And you won't be the first. Your parents did it. Their parents did it. Every generation gets one crash, and every generation makes the very same mistake when it arrives. Tonight, we name that mistake, we measure it to the dollar, and we find the one person who refused to make it. Here it is in plain words. When the market falls, your brain feels it not as a number on a screen, but as a wound, a real loss it is desperate to stop. So it sells, at the bottom, locking a temporary drop into a permanent one. And it has done this generation after generation in every crash ever printed. Let me show you the same mistake across 4 different crashes. Watch how the year changes and the panic doesn't. Start with the boomer. 2008, the financial crisis. His retirement account, the one he'd fed for 30 years, falls in half. The news says it's the end of the world. So terrified, he sells what's left, swears off stocks forever, and moves it all to cash, right near the bottom. The market triples over the next decade. He watches the recovery he paid for from the sidelines. His daughter, Gen X, she learned nothing from him because the instinct doesn't pass through logic. Her crash came too. She held a little longer, told herself she was tough, then cracked at the worst possible moment and sold just before the rebound. Same wound, same flinch, same locked-in loss. Then the Millennial. 2020. The market drops 30% in a few weeks, faster than anything in history. He'd been told to invest, finally started, and then his very first crash hit. Pure fear. He sold everything in March, told himself he'd buy back when it was safe, and watched the market fully recover by summer, without him. His first lesson in investing was the most expensive one there is, that the market punishes the brave and rewards the patient, and that fear, in the moment, cannot tell the two apart. And Gen Z, in their first dip, watching it crash live on a phone at 2 in the morning, a sell button glowing 1 tap away. They didn't even wait for a real crash. A normal pullback was enough. Sold in a panic, bought back higher, and called it bad luck. The crash was new. The reflex was ancient. 4 generations, 4 different disasters, 1 identical mistake, repeated with perfect, painful precision. None of them were stupid. They were just human, in a falling market, doing exactly what a human brain is built to do. And it is brutally expensive. Let me put the number on it. Forward, every input on the table. Say you have $50,000 invested, and a crash cuts it to 30. On paper, you've lost 20,000. But it's only paper, until you sell. The holder waits, the market recovers, and that 50,000 is whole again. The panic seller turned the paper loss into a real one. He locked in 30,000 and re-entered later near the old highs, with 40% less money working for him forever. Run that forward 25 years at the market's 10%. The one who held? About $540,000. The one who panicked? About $325,000. One flinch in one bad month cost over $200,000. A modeled estimate, but the inputs are yours to check. That is the price of a single sell. So here is the real question. Why would the brain do this every generation, knowing every crash in history eventually recovered? Because this was never a logic problem. It's a survival reflex. Psychologists have measured it precisely. A loss hurts about twice as much as the same size gain feels good. Losing $100 stings far more than finding 100 delights. That isn't weakness, it's ancient arithmetic. For your ancestors, a gain was a nice surprise. More food, a little extra. But a loss of food, of shelter, of standing in the group could be the thing that killed you. So evolution wired the brain to treat loss as an emergency, to avoid it at almost any cost. And this isn't a metaphor. Scan a brain during a market loss and you see the amygdala, the same alarm that fires for a physical threat, light up. Cortisol floods the body, the heart rate climbs, the slow, planning part of your brain goes quiet, outvoted, at the exact moment you need it most. You are not making a financial decision in a crash, you are fleeing a predator that happens to be a number on a screen. And in a falling market, that wiring fires like an alarm. Every red number is read by the oldest part of your brain as a predator, a threat, a wound that must be stopped now. Selling makes the pain stop instantly. It feels like safety. It feels like control. And it is, almost always, the single worst financial move available to you, taken at the one moment it does the most damage. And here is the cruelty woven into it. The reason the instinct is a perfect trap. The market's best days come clustered right next to its worst ones, in the chaos at the bottom. The biggest rebounds happen days after the biggest crashes, while panic sellers are sitting safely in cash. So the very act of selling to escape the worst days guarantees you also miss the best ones. You don't dodge the pain, you only lock it in. And it's worse than just missing the bounce. A crash is the rarest gift the market ever hands you. The same ownership of the same companies, suddenly 40% off. The calm investor sees a sale and buys more. The panicked one sees a fire and sells into it. So the instinct doesn't only make you miss the discount, it makes you hand your shares, cheap, to the one person steady enough to take them. Every panic seller needs a buyer. That buyer gets rich on your fear. And pull back far enough, and the pattern is almost absurd. The crash of 1929, 1987, the dot-com collapse, 2008, 2020. Everyone felt, at the time, like the end of the system itself. Every single one recovered and climbed to highs no panicked seller believed were possible. The crash is always real. The end of the world has never once arrived. Which means this mistake, like all of them, has a weakness. But before we break it, look at who profits every time you panic. Because fear, it turns out, is the most reliable moneymaker in finance. Every red banner, every market's plunge headline, every push notification that buzzes your phone the second your stocks tick down. None of it is there to inform you. It is engineered to spike your fear, because fear makes you act, and every time you trade, someone on the other side gets paid. The financial media sells panic by the hour. The apps put a sell button one trembling tap from your thumb at 2 in the morning with no friend to stop you. They are not protecting your wealth. They are harvesting your oldest instinct, one crash at a time. And the feed made it relentless. Your grandfather had to wait for the evening news to feel afraid. You get a fresh jolt of it every time your screen lights up. A falling number, a screaming headline, a stranger online certain it's all collapsing. The fear that once arrived once a decade now arrives every hour. And every hour, it asks you to sell. And it sets the cleanest trap of all. After you sell, you tell yourself something that sounds wise. I'll get back in when things calm down, when it's safe. But it never feels safe at the bottom. The bottom is, by definition, the most terrifying moment, the point of maximum fear. By the time it feels safe again, the market has already climbed back, and you buy in higher than you sold. "I'll wait for safety" is the exact sentence that converts a dip into a permanent loss. So willpower, in the moment, is not the fix. You cannot out-argue a survival alarm while it's screaming. The fix is to do what one person in our story did. Meet the exception. Call him Noah. He lived through the same crashes as everyone else, felt the same fear in his chest, watched the same red screens. But he had decided one thing in advance, while he was calm: that he would not sell in a crash, no matter what. So when the markets fell, he did the single hardest thing in all of investing: nothing. He turned off the news, left the account alone, and let the storm pass. He sat through 2008 without flinching, through the crash of 2020 when the world itself seemed to be shutting down. Through every dip the headlines swore was different this time. Each one, he did nothing, and each one, the market climbed back over his unsold shares and kept going. For a while, he looked like a fool. People around him were selling, sounding smart, sounding safe, while he just sat there doing nothing as his account bled red. And then the recovery came, as it always has, and he was still holding every share. He didn't beat the panic with willpower. He removed his own ability to act on it before the fear ever arrived. So here is how you become the exception. Without fighting an alarm, you can't win against. First, decide now, in the calm, what you'll do in the crash. Write one sentence: I will not sell when the market falls. A promise made by the rational version of you to bind the terrified one who shows up later. Second, turn off the alarms. Delete the price alerts. Close the app during a crash. You cannot panic sell a number you never see. The crash can't reach you if you don't watch it fall. Third, reframe the red. A crash is not your wealth disappearing. It is the same shares on sale. The investor who keeps buying calmly while everyone else sells in terror is the one who gets rich from the very crash that ruins them. And fourth, zoom out. Every single crash in market history, every one, eventually recovered and went on to new highs. The panic always felt like the end. It never once was. So here's the one move before you click away. Open your investing app right now while it's calm and turn off every price notification. That's it. You're disarming the alarm before it can ever make you sell. You're tying yourself to the mast while the sea is still flat. And if you've never seen how staying calm and invested turns a few $100s a month into millions, why the line falls, then always climbs higher, that's the episode waiting right here. Watch it next and subscribe. We take these survival instincts apart one at a time, and every single one is wired into the next. This entry cost over $200,000, paid in a single afternoon, in a single crash, by people who were certain, in that moment, that selling was the safe thing to do. That's the signature of every line in here. Not a mistake that feels like a mistake that feels like survival. Right up until the recovery you sold leaves without you. But this one, you can decide to refuse before it ever comes. So we keep counting. One instinct, one crash, one generation at a time.